And in today's episode, I'm going to be showing you how to unlock your gluteus minimus, a very particular muscle that connects to a very particular part of your hip. So it's a very important muscle that allows certain movements of the hip to happen. And when this muscle is tight, it can make your hip joint itself feel restricted because the muscle that connects to the hip joint is physically restricted as well. So here's a very, very basic stretch that can help release the tension in the gluteus minimus muscle. So if you're doing this at the end of your day, after work, and if you just want to unwind, have something to do before you go to sleep, or if you're doing this after exercise when your muscles are already tight and you just want to relax them and release the tension to increase the range of motion and the length of the muscle so that it's ready to contract again with full range of motion for when you do the exercise or play a particular sport. This is the thing that you can do for your hip. So the glute minimus. Welcome to the official home, muscular myotherapy and yoga channel, which can be done at home given our times. One of my clients asked me, how do I release the tension in my hips? That's a very good question. Now to answer this question, I'll first let you know there are different joints and different muscles and ligaments and tendons that even make up the hips. So when we're talking about the hips, we're going to find out what part of the hips we're talking about. There are many different muscles in the glute region. Each of those muscles can connect to very different parts of your lower back, your sacrum, your hips, or parts of your leg, but you can't always see them because it's covered up by the skin. But if you were to remove the skin where the glute region is, you would see that there are many different muscles that connect to very different places and allow different movements to even happen. And when tension levels are very high, can restrict very particular movements and cause very particular pain. So the glute minimus muscle is a glute muscle that hides two layers in behind two other muscles that are on top of the glute minimus muscle. The most important movements that the glute minimus muscle allows your hip to do is abduction. It allows your leg to travel away from your body essentially, but it also provides stabilization in a way to your hip joint itself because the muscle physically connects to your hip joint, the part of the hip that's called the greater trochanter. There are many ways to release the glute minimus muscle that are more clinical, more direct in nature, such as myofascial dry needling, neuromuscular deep tissue techniques. But today we're just gonna stretch the muscle in particular. So today I'm just gonna show you a nice general neuromuscular stretch for the gluteus minimus that's very, very basic, and it involves a few different movements. Some of you probably have seen many of these types of stretches on YouTube, on Facebook, or people showing you these stretches from different disciplines, from Pilates, from yoga, from a particular physical therapist that you see. I'm going to show you these movements from the angle of breaking down the movement and showing you which muscles are actually involved, how to do it in a more safe way rather than just blindly doing the movement, so that you're mechanically and neurophysiologically targeting the right muscles when you're stretching in particular, such as the glute minimus, which I'm about to show you. You can get your yoga mat out, your Pilates mat, your carpet out, or you can just do this on the floor if you're feeling comfortable. So what you first do is you get on the floor and you want to get into this position. So I'm going to start with my right glute minimus muscle on my right side. My right leg externally rotates. If you remember in the previous video, external rotation from the hip ball and socket joint is rotating outwards externally, making my knee go outwards because my hip is going outwards. That's external rotation. So we're going to get in this position and my right leg is going to be externally rotated. My opposite leg is going to be going inwards. And I'm going to be putting my left leg behind my right leg. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is bringing my heel as close to my groin as I can. Do it in a way where you're not feeling any pressure in your knee. And if you're feeling any pressure in your knee, to just readjust the position so that you're not doing it with tension in your knee. It should feel nice and easy. This is where I get a lot of technical questions asked. So depending where I lean, I may be targeting completely different glute muscles or muscles in the glute region, or different fibers or taut bands within certain muscles within the glute region. So I want to be targeting the glute minimus in particular because it's important to reduce the tension levels in your hips. If your glute minimus muscle was the cause to begin with, making your hips feel stiff when you're walking or if you're sitting down all day, this will be really good for it. The third thing I'm going to be doing is grab your hands and put it in between your right leg for support. The goal is to put your chest to your right knee, but making sure that your whole posture is aiming towards your knee. From this position, you'll notice that my hip, the greater trochanter or the ball and socket joint of the hip, my hip is externally rotated and the knee is going towards the chest. And from this position, the gluteus minimus muscle is able to stretch. If this is as far as you can go, the fact that you're trying this is a success. You should be feeling a gentle stretch in the back of your glutes, in your glute minimus muscle in particular at the back. And if you're feeling any tension in the hips or the knees, readjust the position until you don't feel the tension. Now remember, the connective tissue, as I said in my previous episode, it relaxes a lot slower than your muscles. And since the connective tissue has many different layers, when it releases, you're able to improve the hydration levels between the different layers of the fascia or the glad wrap, which is essentially the connective tissue fascia that surrounds the muscle on the hip. So you want to go very, very slow. You don't really have to do anything. You just have to hold the position for a longer period of time. If you're able to go further, breathe out and go on your elbows. Remember, I'm facing my right knee. I'm not going towards my shin or towards the outside of my leg, because that's going to be targeting slightly different muscles in the glutes. I'm going straight to my knee. If you can go further, take in a deep breath in, and only on the out breath, as you breathe out, rest your chest on your right knee and put your arms in front. And in this position, you can think about your day, focus on your breath. So just because you're aware of where you're feeling the stretch, you're improving the brain to muscle connection. You can do this for 30 seconds, for 60 seconds, for 2 minutes. You can reach up to doing this for 4 minutes, or for as long as you want, as long as it feels enjoyable. This is a really, really good way to release a lot of the generalized tension in your hip joint, loosening your hips and feeling a lot of relief and more mobility when you're going to do a particular exercise, when you need mobility in your hip, when you're going to be playing a particular sport. And if you break those techniques down on the level of movement and the muscles and joints that are required to be in an optimal condition, you'll realize how important this muscle actually is, the glute minimus. Now, when you finish this position, go back on your hands. Orthopedically speaking, how you get into a position and how you get out of the position is very important. When you get into a position slower and when you get out of the position slower, your connective tissue, which takes longer to readjust and relax compared to your muscles, is able to relax and readjust to what's just happened. And your brain is able to register the new perceived length of your gluteus minimus muscle and the movements of your hips that you'll be able to do because you did it at a slower pace. If a tight glute minimus was the cause of the hip restriction to begin with. So now, you always want to do the other side. You'll probably notice that one side is usually tighter than the other. And if you can go further again, the next progression is putting your chest on your left knee. So that's a good stretch for your glute minimus muscle. This is a very important muscle to stabilize your hip. So it's important that you're doing an exercise that's strengthening your glute minimus muscle. If you want to know how to do that, send me a message. I'll make a video about it. Otherwise, search up glute minimus exercises. This video is more about releasing the perceived tension and doing a neuromuscular stretch to stretch out the muscle of the glute minimus itself to give you less hip pain and more freedom of movement and a much more looser sensation in your hip. So if you've liked this video, click like and share it with your family and friends for them to enjoy as well. Stay tuned. Enjoy.